Hello everyone, welcome back to Looney Bin. My name is Looney. Welcome to this Looney Talk, where I discuss certain things about certain topics that you may agree or disagree with. And this topic is mostly in terms of shipping. Now, I'm going to be mostly referencing One Piece because this is where a lot of this type of situations happen more in One Piece than in a lot of other series. And that's in part of like Oda's style of writing, his style of comedy, and just the way he writes certain things, right? It's more prevalent in One Piece than in a lot of other series. I will mention other series as well, but this is mostly in terms of just in One Piece more so than any other series. Now, what I'm referring to in this video is going to be overreactions, or essentially very high levels of affection that can come off as a gag, can come off as comedic, as silly. And that is just overreactions, high affection for characters like Sanji or Hancock, who their views of romance, you know, in the way that Oda writes them, can make them look like really silly people, right? It can make them come off more comedic than actual serious emotional value that they can bring in a ship. Now, I'm not saying that this can immediately break a ship, but it can do more harm than good. And the reason why it can do more harm than good is because when you take these characters, right, who are trying to have an emotional moment with each other, and you add that kind of overreaction, that kind of comedic stuff, it can harm that moment and then the ship itself. Because what you want with any ship, right, with any ship, is that emotional connection between the two characters. You want it to grow. You want their bond to grow, their trust to grow, to the point where, like, you know, they care about each other at a very high level. Now, I'm not saying that Sanji doesn't care about, you know, the female characters at all, because he does. That is something that is genuine from Sanji, where he does care about these female characters, right? But I'm talking specifically about those serious moments, and he goes to a overreaction that just, it goes up to an 11. You know, it's out of the frame of the shot instead of being more level. And that's why I think those type of reactions harm a ship more than it does good, right? A perfect example will be this. In Enies Lobby, you know, after Sanji refuses to fight Khalifa, Sanji falls down, and then Nami and Sanji have a good moment. You know, a good moment between each other, where Nami admits that she doesn't mind his chivalry, that she thinks he's an idiot, which she thinks of most of her crewmates anyway, right? But she doesn't mind his chivalry, and it's one of the aspects she does like about Sanji, right? And then Sanji, you know, instead of, like, you know, accepting that or, like, you know, smiling just genuinely, he goes on to has a comedic line that says basically, wait, does this mean that Nami loves me? And Chopper hits him. Like, that's not what that means, right? That's what I mean when that type of reaction or that type of comedic thing just ruins that emotional aspect, right? It's why a lot of people find Sanji flirting or like being in this love state or having some sort of any genuine relationship with any character hard, because he has this overreaction, these type of moments that just ruin those serious moments. Even when Sanji tries to save Nami during that Thriller Bark and the wedding, he has this dumb, comedic, goddamn silly conversation with the person who's trying to harm Nami, and just makes him come off really bad. You know, that's, what are you doing? You're supposed to save Nami, right? It's supposed to be a nice moment, a serious moment for, you know, your ship. And Sanji just has this weird conversation about how Absalom stole his dream of becoming invisible to people in women's bathroom. That is why it just, I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, that does more harm to the ship than good. That's what I mean by these overreactions harming a shipping moment or just any ship. There's no need for it. If you want that emotional connection, you want that bond to continue to grow into something more. That's why it's so, that's why I just cannot personally see a ship like that being something that could happen, right? an example for something like Hancock's reactions. Whenever Hancock thinks of Luffy, she has this fantasy about him. Essentially, it's what normally a crush is. A crush is, these growing feelings you have for somebody, and then you fantasize about that person without really even getting to know them at first. Although, there are instances where you do get a crush on somebody after knowing them, which is, normal. But crushes tend to have these, fantasies about certain people that, you may not know, or you may only like them for certain reasons, right? And like I said, these feelings can be genuine. They definitely can. But it's the overreactions to a lot of the imagination stuff that can really harm the ship more than good, because she's imagining Luffy in a way that is very un-Luffy-like in her fantasies, right? And then when he is in pain, he's hurt. After what happened with Ace, she thinks the problem that would fix Luffy would just be giving him food, when what he needs is something like what Jinbei did for him, right? That's why it just becomes something very hard to take seriously, because it just makes it either silly, or it just, makes it very difficult to see, a ship having that emotional connection grow if the characters don't know each other, or bond with each other to a point where like they know what they need in order to recover, to heal, right? And that's why those overreactions where you go at 11 just harm a ship a lot more than it does good. Now, as I mentioned before, other anime also do it. Other anime do. A good example would be Juvia and Gray from Fairy Tail, where Juvia, has high levels of affection for Gray. She kind of stalks him. She kind of hides behind, things like buildings, and continues to spy on Gray, right? That is really over the top, like reactions and like high affection for somebody. It can come up very strange. It can come up very weird, right? But from my understanding, and granted, I haven't really followed Fairy Tail for a while now. I don't know if Gray and Juvia did become canon, but I do see that that's where, Hiro Mishima was going for, right? But you could see what I mean, that it can work. It all depends on how the author writes it. There could still be something for Hancock and Sanji as well, with certain ships, right? Like Hancock and Luffy. But it does more harm. The overreaction does a lot more harm than good in terms of writing or trying to connect or create and grow an emotional bond between these characters that could lead to something more. And that's why I think these type of reactions, these type of moments, these type of things that can be seen as silly or comedic can do a lot more harm. Now, I know people can argue that that's just Oda's style, that he adds comedy to even serious moments because, that's just the way he writes comedy. And yes, I agree with that. He does do that. He does. But in general, like a lot of times people will find it more silly than actually take a ship seriously, which is why there's a lot of people who don't like shipping in One Piece, because they view it as nothing more than a comedic, and that there's nothing more beyond that, right? So it's like, that's what I mean when like it can do more harm than good, because it can ruin emotional scenes and make it harder for that connection, for that bond to grow to something more than just being friends, right? Another example of like type of like over the top reactions to a ship could be in Gintama, Gintoki, and I forgot what her name is, but she is the light purple haired ninja who kind of stalks Gintoki a lot. You see, that's like an over the top reaction, an over the top affection that actually does more harm to the ship than good. It's funny, it's comedic, that's the point, right? And that's why a lot of people don't necessarily take it seriously, right? Even though Gintama necessarily isn't really a big, huge, like ship. It's even the same way with I forgot their names, but the guy who was always compared to like a gorilla, and the sister of Glasses guy. It's been so long since I read Gintama. I'm so sorry, I can't remember names. But like you see like the over top reactions with the guy who the guy from the police force. I am so sorry, I can't remember these names. And you see it over the top, and like but I think there's a little bit more connection, emotional connection there. But again, Gintama was mostly a comedic story, so more than likely, even the end of Gintama, there's no ship that was actually confirmed, right? But like that's the point. Those type of things can actually do more harm than good for a ship. It can work, but it also really depends on how the author writes it. Now, I can give you an example of a ship that can work despite Sanji kind of being like, you know, over the top with his affection, with his, you know, reaction. And that is with Pudding, right? You see that when, you know, Sanji first meets Pudding, he goes into that overreaction, he has that love state. But then you see those moments where he has that emotional connection that can grow his relationship with Pudding. And you see his overreactions calm down. He still does have like some sort of overreaction, like when he tells, you know, that Pudding's third eye is beautiful. That's great. He's blushing. He's amazed by her third eye. He still thinks she's beautiful, despite, you know, people thinking that is one of the weirdest things on Pudding, which is wrong, right? But it's level. That type of affection, that type of reaction is leveled. It isn't all the way up here. And that's how it works. You don't want it here. You want it leveled. By having it leveled, maybe even higher than that, a little bit higher than that, it creates a more emotional growth in the ship. And that's why something like that is a lot more genuine, right? Over the top reactions are great. They're funny. They're silly, right? But it also can make it very hard for anyone to take seriously. And that's why I think having those type of reactions can harm a ship more than good. I understand it's used for comedic purposes. It's used for gags. I get that. More than likely, Oda, in terms of One Piece, may not actually take, you know, those ships seriously, and only does it just to make them silly, make them, you know, have a gag. Because when you look at the way Oda writes romance, right, like with Oden Toki, with like a lot of these confirmed, you know, pairings, Oden Toki, Kinemon Suru, Kitos and Scarlet, a lot of these have really good emotional moments where you could see them slowly growing, you know, their bond together, slowly growing their, you know, affection. And a lot of the times when you see those moments, you see them at such a good level that none of them really go over the top. And that's how Oda essentially, I think, views romance, like actual genuine romance in his series. And I'm not sure if he will. I do believe that he will have pairings at the end. I'm not sure, you know, if he will. I used to think that he wouldn't, like, almost 100%. Like, I thought it was just going to be open ending. But I noticed like patterns that may or may not just be me misinterpreting things, right? But I noticed a pattern with how he writes romances, and that he has continuously added more romance, you know, type of subplots, that it is still that I'm slowly leaning towards that he is going to make something possible. It can still work because there is a common trope where, like, there is one character who's overly affectionate towards another character who finds it annoying, and then when that character stops, the other character suddenly misses that affection, right? And then you know, they slowly pursue that character, and they grow, and then eventually get together, right? That is possible. That is a trope in anime that has happened, as well as fiction and video games and such like that, right? It can happen. I'm not saying Oda can't do that with his overreactions and gag stuff. It just seems like it just does more harm than good, because what you want is that emotion. You want that emotional growth, that trust, that bond to continue growing between these two characters, that it could lead to something more. And having those overreactions can do it a lot more harm than good. So again, you can definitely disagree with me. I'm perfectly fine with that, but I do want to have a discussion. That's the point of me making videos like this, is that I do want discussion. If you disagree with me, tell me why, and we could have a nice civil discussion. You know, I'm not going to get angry at you. I'm not going to call you anything, you know, or, you know, call out your ship or say why your ship is bad or anything like that, because I'm not going to do that to you. I just want a discussion. I really want to hear what people think. I'm very curious about that. So let me know, you know, if you have any thoughts like that, if you want to discuss anything like that, in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my shipping takes, my shipping videos and stuff. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.